At the class reunion, my ex-wife noticed the engagement ring on my hand and teased, "Is your fiancée as pretty as me?" The crowd erupted in laughter, and I casually turned the ring on my finger. "She's actually a bit prettier." My ex-wife's face darkened for the rest of the evening. As the event wrapped up and we were leaving, my ex-wife blocked my way. "You chased after me for 7 years, and now you're just getting married? What about me? What am I to you?" she demanded. I smiled faintly. Consider my blindness back then. At the reunion, one drink followed another. Before I could have too much, Adrienne stopped me, covering my glass. "Your stomach isn't good. Don't overdo it." Concerned. For a moment, the air felt heavy. She must have forgotten that we had broken up a long time ago. My relationship with Adrienne was a tangled one. I fell in love with her at first sight during the university's opening ceremony, and I began to pursue her passionately. I brought her breakfast, gave her brown sugar water during her period, and sent roses on her birthday. I was completely devoted to her. Everyone knew that Adrienne had an obedient, patient admirer who would do anything for her. Over time, she came to accept my presence without question. In our 3rd year, I confessed for the 865th time, "Adrienne, be my girlfriend," I said, holding a bouquet of flowers. Her expression was calm, unreadable. Taking the flowers, she neither accepted nor rejected my confession. Given her ambiguous attitude, everyone just assumed we were dating. In our senior year, tragedy struck Adrienne's family. Her father, driving while fatigued, caused an accident that killed someone, and they had to pay a 300,000 yuan settlement. Her mother fell ill and became paralyzed, bedridden for years. The family had lost its breadwinner and was burdened with debt. At the time, my own startup had just gone public and was doing well. I took my bank card and rushed to Adrienne's house. The front door had been vandalized with red paint. The words "A life for a life" scrawled across it. Passers bespat as they walked by. I knocked on the door and found it unlocked. Inside, Adrienne was sitting in the kitchen, staring blankly. I walked over, handed her the bank card, and hugged her tightly. "Don't be afraid. I'm here," I said. Adrienne looked at me, and slowly, emotion returned to her hollow gaze. Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked on the verge of breaking down. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I like you." Adrienne was taken aback, silent for a while. "Finally," she said, "Bainbridge. Let's be together." After graduating, Adrienne and I moved in together. I continued running my business, and with my help, Adrienne started her own company, which was about to go public. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. One night, after we had turned off the light, Adrienne suddenly asked me, "Bainbridge, do you like children?" "What?" I replied. "Children." I paused for a moment, then asked, "Do you?" No, they're too noisy," she said. "Oh, then we won't," Adrienne interrupted. "I want to have a child. Our child." After that, we tried many times, but nothing happened. Adrienne went to the hospital and was diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, making it difficult for her to conceive. To lift her spirit, I proposed marriage. Crying for a long time that night, "Bainbridge, thank you for loving someone like me." On our anniversary, we went out on a date. Halfway through the meal, Adrienne became nauseous and couldn't stop vomiting. A visit to the hospital revealed she was 2 months pregnant. Adrienne cried tears of joy and hugged me. "Bainbridge, it's our baby," she said. I smiled and held her, though the words I wanted to say never came out. To focus on her pregnancy, Adrienne decided to temporarily step back from her company. But she didn't have anyone fully capable of taking over. Just then, Carl appeared. He was a junior from Adrienne's university, a recent graduate but already showing great potential. Adrienne appointed Carl as her proxy. He commuted between the company and our home every day, reporting to Adrienne, who would then pass instructions to the company's leaders through Carl. Every time I came home from work, Adrienne would chatter about the day's happenings, often mentioning Carl. He's hardworking and really talented. Bainbridge. You should consider bringing him into your company once I'm back after having a baby. Silly, I said, tapping her forehead. You're just going to hand over such a valuable employee? Carl is smart and could ease your workload. If you're less stressed, I'll feel more at ease, she replied. At the peak of our relationship, we were always wanting to be together. But soon, things began to change. I don't know when it started, but our conversation shifted from talking about our future to how exceptional Carl was. Carl is really smart. Carl's so thoughtful. He even remembered my period and brought me brown sugar water in advance. But he didn't know that pregnant women don't have period. Carl came by today and made fried rice for me. I didn't expect him to be a decent cook. Carl brought me a flower today. Said he saw it on the way over and thought it suited me. Carl asked me out this weekend. He wanted to thank me for mentoring him during this time. Last time you were on a business trip, Carl and I worked late into the night, so I let him stay over. I didn't expect him to talk in his sleep, such a contrast. Carl's birthday is coming up. I want to get him a gift as thanks for all his help lately. Carl. It was all about Carl. Adrienne, can you stop talking about Carl? I said. She paused for a moment. You've been so busy with work. I shouldn't keep chatting your ear off. I'm talking too much. No, that wasn't it. She didn't understand at all. It wasn't about talking too much. Adrienne, let's change the agent. I don't like Carl. I said bluntly. Why? He's so excellent. You won't find another like him. What's your problem with him? Besides, this is my company. My agent. So what does this have to do with you? What does it have to do with me? I bitterly licked my lips. She's starting to shut me out because of him. Seeing that I wasn't saying anything, Adrienne gently stroked her belly and let out a bitter laugh. Is it because I'm pregnant, and we can't be close anymore? So you've gotten tired of me? I couldn't understand why Adrienne would think that. I've been working harder than ever, enduring more than ever, all for her and the baby's future happiness. I felt frustrated. Can you wake up? I'm a father of this child. I'm your husband. Carl is just an outsider. I shouted at her. Adrienne seemed startled. She froze for a moment, then, snapping back to her senses, walked into the bedroom and locked the door with a sharp click. I stood there, staring dumbly at the 2 movie tickets on the table. It felt like something, somewhere, had also shattered with a click. Adrienne and I maintained this cold war for almost a week. And she even avoided sitting at the same table for meals. At first, I acted the same. But after a few days, I softened and tried to start a conversation. She ignored me, and even sarcastically said, "Didn't you say I was annoying?" The day before my business trip. She was still sulking. As I stood at the door, I couldn't help but say, "I'm leaving. Call me if you need anything." Almost instinctively, she replied, "Take care on the road." After realizing what she'd said, she turned around, casually picking up the TV remote. Undoubted, I was talking to the air. Okay, I nodded. I bought fruit and honey for you in the fridge. Don't do the housework while you're alone. I'll arrange for a cleaner to come over. I'll be back in a few days. Even though Adrienne and I had been fighting, I was still filled with anticipation when I returned from the trip. I wondered what she might be doing, lying in bed reading a novel, experimenting with desserts in the kitchen, or sitting on the couch telling stories to our unborn child. I imagined many possibilities, but none of them prepared me for the sight of her laughing and joking around with Carl. Carl said something that made Adrienne burst into laughter. She playfully slapped his shoulder, saying, "Stop it," her eyes curving into a bright smile. Carl, in turn, didn't say anything, just quietly tucked a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. I stood at the door, my face dark with anger. When Adrienne noticed me, her smile faded, replaced by the same annoyed expression she had before I left. "You're back?" "Yeah, I'm back. Carl invited me to dinner. I'll be going out later, so make yourself something to eat. If you don't feel like cooking, I can bring back some leftovers for you." "No need," I replied, using the last bit of strength I had left. Ka gave me a casual goodbye before leaving with Adrienne. I stared at the now empty house, feeling a growing frustration. What did I do wrong? What happened to us? We used to be so in love. Has love really disappeared? I'm so tired. I want to let go. I sighed and made myself a cup of instant noodles. I thought, we really need to talk. When Adrienne returned, I handed her a glass of honey water. Adrienne, I have something to say. I'm tired. Let's talk tomorrow. I think this is something we need to address sooner rather than later. It won't take much of your time. Annoyed, Adrienne put down her glass. Can't you be a little more understanding? I walked a lot today, and I'm exhausted. Adrienne. We Bainbridge. Adrienne cut me off. Can you stop being so unreasonable? I don't know what's gotten into you lately. Is it stress? You keep snapping at me, ignoring me, and now you're randomly saying we need to talk. Are you going to bring up divorce? Custody of the baby? Bainbridge, haven't you noticed that our lives are completely falling apart? I looked at Adrienne in disbelief. Adrienne, how do you really feel about our marriage? Adrienne didn't answer. She simply said, Bainbridge, we both need some space to cool down. A few days passed after that, and our relationship only worsened. One day, during dinner, Adrienne casually mentioned, Carl confessed to me. The chopsticks froze my dress, and the food I was holding fell onto the table. What did you say to him? I don't know. My mind is a mess right now, Bainbridge. I'm afraid rejecting him outright would hurt him, but I also can't let go of you and the baby. Her voice grew quieter until it disappeared altogether. Seeing Adrienne with her head down, saying nothing, I couldn't hold back any longer and snapped at her. Adrienne, do you even want this marriage anymore? I slammed my chopsticks down on the table. Adrienne froze. After a moment, she slammed her hand on the table and stood up. Why are you yelling for no reason? You mention Carl every day. Now he's even confessed to you. And you're afraid of hurting him if you reject him. Who the hell is your husband? Bainbridge. Are you crazy? Yes, Carl confessed to me. But what does that have to do with me? I hired him as an agent. What's wrong with mentioning his name a few times? Do you really need to obsess over this? You go on dates with him, have meals with him, watch movies with him, and mess around with him on the couch. You've been indulging him time and again. Adrienne, are you really going to sit here and lie to my face? You call this work? Tell me. Is this work? Bainbridge. Adrienne shouted my name. You don't trust me? How can I trust you? We stood there in a deadlock until the door clicked open. Carl was standing in the doorway. What's going on here? I let out a cold laugh, pointing at Carl as I asked Adrienne. You even gave him a spare key? Adrienne. Well, you've really outdone yourself. Adrienne, exhausted, brushed her hair back and let out a long sigh. Bainbridge. I don't get it. Back in college, you chased after me relentlessly. You even bought breakfast and running shoes for the guy I was flirting with for 3 years, all without complaint. And now, it's just a key, nothing more. I don't understand. Do you need to argue with me just to feel at peace? Adrienne, look me in the eye and answer this honest. Is this really just about a key? I asked. Adrienne fell silent. At that moment, Carl, who had been standing nearby. Bainbridge. Don't blame Adrienne. It's all my fault. I'm the one who likes Adrienne. I'm the one pursuing her. It's my problem. Carl apologized to me 3 times. And then rushed out the door. Carl. Adrienne tried to stop him. Running to the door, I called out to her. If you walk out that door today, there will be no going back for us. Bainbridge, don't push me. Is it me and the baby? Or Carl? I asked again. Tears spilled from her eyes. Then, she sobbed. Just like she did that year when I found her crying in her kitchen during senior year. Adrienne touched her belly and said, I'm sorry. Bainbridge. Adrienne left. In the end, I was alone in the empty house, left with nothing but my solitary self. I stayed home in a daze for a week, and sold the house we had lived in together. Carl accompanied Adrienne to the civil affairs office, and we finalized our divorce. After that, I never contacted Adrienne again. I only heard through old classmates that she followed Carl's advice, sold her shares in the company, and flew abroad with him. As for the only child Adrienne and I would have had, it was lost at the cold edge of a surgeon's knife, prompted by Carl's urging. Coming back to the present, Adrienne realized she had overstepped and fell silent. But, just a one-off. The class president chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. It's a reunion today. Let's drink until we're satisfied. Come on. Refill the glasses. Christopher joined in, teasing. Our class belle is still as kind-hearted and beautiful as ever. Adrienne glanced at our old classmates and gave a helpless, "You guys are always flattering me. I might actually take it seriously." Don't be so modest. Everyone knows you, Adrienne, for always the prettiest in class. Yeah, back in the day, Bainbridge was head over heels for you. He used to say he'd never marry anyone else. Colby, tipsy, chimed in and the atmosphere that had finally started to ease tensed up again. The class president clicked his tongue and gave Colby a nudge on the shoulder, signaling him to shut up. I downed my drink quietly and said nonchalantly, "That's all in the past." Adrienne froze for a moment, then forced a bitter smile. "Yeah, it's all in the past," perhaps trying to ease the awkwardness. Adrienne began to strike up small talk with me. "Hey, Bainbridge, that plain ring on your hand looks pretty nice, but it seems like it's on the wrong finger, doesn't it?" The class president coughed twice, but Adrienne didn't catch on. Pointing to her right middle finger, she continued with a smile. "The left hand has a special meaning. You know, it should go on your right hand. You're still as careless as you used to be." I looked down at the ring, rubbed it, and smiled slightly. "It's not on the wrong finger. I'm engaged." Adrienne looked at me in disbelief. Her eyes, usually calm like water, were now swirling with mixed emotions. The class president clapped his hands and shook his head at me. "Well, Bainbridge, that's not cool. Even if Adrienne was abroad during that time, you could have at least called to tell her the news." "You should have. Man." A phone call to share the news. After she publicly announced her relationship with Carl said that keeping my contact info made him uncomfortable. In a moment, the years of connection we had worked off because of a fleeting sense of discomfort, and she blocked me, severing all ties. Even if I had wanted to share my engagement news, how could I have? During the engagement, both families were busy back and forth, and then I just got caught up in work and forgot. "That's on me, my bad. I'll drink to that," I said with a smile. I poured myself a glass and drank it in one go. Adrienne snapped back to the moment and forced a smile. But it looked worse than crying. "Bainbridge, you really surprised me. It's all so sudden. I haven't even met your fiancée yet." Colby, drunk and puffing on a cigarette, added, "Fiancée? You mean you've got to start calling her your wife soon?" "Yes," Adrienne nodded, holding her wine glass in both hands and downing it in one go. She then asked, "What does your fiancée look like? What kind of person is she? What's her personality like? How old is she? Is she local?" Finally, she added, "Is she as pretty as me?" Seeing that Adrienne was making light of the situation, the class president thought she had fully moved on and no longer avoided mentioning my fiancée. "To be honest, Candace doesn't lose out to you," someone said. "Yeah. Oval face, gentle as water. I heard she's into design. Pretty talented. Hey, Bainbridge, you should bring your wife out for us to meet sometime." Adrienne's stiff smile looked more unnatural by the second. "She's really that pretty?" I replied, casually turning the ring on my finger. "Lucky you then," Adrienne said quietly. "Yeah. Any plans for marriage?" I asked offhandedly. "Yeah, Adrienne. You know, it's better to settle down sooner rather than later," the class president remarked. Adrienne twisted her fingers. "I'm still thinking about it." As the night wore on and the event wound down, people went their separate ways. After heading to the parking lot to call for a designated driver, Adrienne blocked my path. How have you been these past few years? She asked me. Pretty good. Sometimes I dream about our past days. Let the past be the past. Bainbridge. Do you really have to be so cold towards me? I couldn't quite understand Adrienne's behavior now. And I have a fiancée. We're just two single people at night. Shouldn't we be keeping our distance? Is this really being cold? Are you really planning to spend your life with someone else? Seeing that I wasn't responding, Adrienne became anxious. Her eyes reddening, almost frantically questioning me. Bainbridge, you've been with me for 7 years. Saying we'd get married? What about me? What do I count as? I shook off her hand and smiled faintly. Just someone I was blind to in the past. Adrienne's body jolted, her lips trembling slightly, and her throat tightened as she tried to say something but couldn't get the words out. I ignored her, and coincidentally, the ride-hailing service arrived, so I got into the car and left. The next evening, I returned home to find Adrienne there. Back, Candace came over, helping me take off my coat. I ran into Adrienne when I was coming home. She said she was your old classmate, so I invited her over. I looked at Adrienne, and she looked back at me, smiling with a hint of confusion. Candace put on an apron and headed to the kitchen. I'm going to fry some dishes. You guys can catch up. In the living room, it was just Adrienne and me. I dragged Adrienne to the hallway and whispered, "What do you want?" Adrienne chuckled. "What? Am I such an embarrassment as your ex-wife? Adrienne, why are you yelling? Bainbridge, you're just the same as before." Adrienne pushed me away and sat back on the couch. "We used to be very happy together, didn't we? Oh, by the way, does Candace know you've been married before?" I clenched my fist. "Adrienne, you went so far as to have an abortion and give up your career to be with Carl. Aren't you unhappy? Why are you coming back to bother me? Did I owe you something in my last life?" Just then, Candace walked into the living room. Adrienne didn't respond to me. Her gaze turned toward the kitchen. I remember there are some small cakes I bought in the fridge. Candace took out the dessert, handing one to Adrienne and one to me. "Adrienne, try this. I often buy it. It tastes pretty good." "Thank you, Candace." Adrienne smiled at her. "Bainbridge, you better not sneak any," Candace said, looking at me with narrowed eyes. "Your stomach isn't great. The cake is a bit cold right now, so wait a bit before eating." At the dinner table, Candace and Adrienne chatted for a long time. "Stop chatting. Adrienne should head back. Otherwise, her boyfriend will get anxious. Right?" I looked at Adrienne, my meaning already hinting at wanting to kick her out. But Adrienne didn't plan on leaving. She held Candace's hand. "No, I'm currently single, so it doesn't matter if I go home a little later." I hit it off with Candace and just want to chat more. "Adrienne, don't you plan to find a boyfriend? Are you against marriage?" "Not at all." Adrienne shook her head. "I was in a relationship before, but we broke up. Before that, I was with someone, got married, and divorced." "I see. Then I guess that just means you haven't found the right person." "Yep." Candace patted Adrienne's shoulder to comfort her. "Candace, you seem to have found the right one. Bainbridge is really good." "Yeah, Bainbridge treats me well. I love him a lot. You two really do seem affectionate." "Actually, we sometimes argue over trivial matters, but that's just how it is. If we each take a step back and show more understanding and love, there's nothing we can't overcome." "Is that so?" "I had an argument with my ex-husband, and he just left me." "Really? How could that happen? Isn't it outrageous? And now he's about to start a family, leaving me alone every day. Missing him so much." "Adrienne." I couldn't listen any longer. I stood up and interrupted her. Candace looked at me, puzzled. "What's wrong?" "Adrienne should go home," I said, adding, "It's not safe for a girl to walk alone at night." "That's true." Candace nodded. "Bainbridge, why don't you see Adrienne?" Outside the building, Adrienne looked at me determinedly. "Bainbridge, I'm more suitable for you than Candace. Get lost." Adrienne paused, walked closer to me, and continued, If you push me away, you'll regret it later. Do you think you're golden and everyone will like you? Adrienne, stop flattering yourself, okay? I pushed her away. You're not happy. So why do you have to interfere in my life? Carl broke up with you. So you want to stir things up and make me fight with Candace? How could you think of me like that? Adrienne frowned, desperately clutching my clothes. Her tone earnest. Bainbridge, I came back because I can't let you go. I miss you. Can you hug me? Can we start over? I'll be a perfect wife. 1,000 times better than Candace. Bainbridge, I'm begging you. You're all I have left. Don't leave me. I could no longer hear what Adrienne was saying. I just felt exhausted being around her. Even just chatting or sharing the same air made it hard for me to breathe. I pulled back my shirt and asked her, Adrienne, are you pathetic or what? Adrienne frowned, looking at me in disbelief. After a while, I'm pathetic. What about you? How are you any better than me? Bainbridge, you and Candace are about to get married. And you're too scared to tell her you've been married before. Bainbridge, we're both equally flawed. Aren't we? Bainbridge. I stood there, stunned. I hadn't mentioned my past with Adrienne to Candace because I felt it wasn't worth bringing up, let alone longing for. I locked that part of my past away in my heart because it was my most humiliating experience. I even tried to numb myself to forget that memory, to forget Adrienne. But I also knew I couldn't keep going on like this. I needed to tell Candace everything. I didn't pay any more attention to Adrienne. After I saw her out of the community gate, I went straight home. That night, I lay in bed with Candace sleeping beside me, in the dark room. Candace, are you asleep? Not yet. I have something to tell you. What is it? Candace pressed her face against my chest. I actually been divorced, and I had a child. What about the child? It was lost before it was born. That must have hurt a lot, Candace said softly. A brief silence followed as we snuggled closer together. I continued. My ex-wife is Adrienne. Candace went quiet. A few seconds later, she said, I guess, you. Candace turned over and hugged me. Bainbridge, let the past be the past. I'm happy now. And I think you should be too. That's enough, right, Candace? I held her tightly. In that moment, 1,000 words turned into a silent embrace. Candace's fingers gently traced my face. Bainbridge, I actually have something to tell you too. I'm pregnant. Time seemed to freeze in that moment. I'm going to be a dad? Yeah, you're going to be a dad. Candace smiled. Miss Key, are you ready to welcome this little life? I was overjoyed. That's amazing, Candace. We're having a baby. On the weekend, Candace said she wanted to visit her parents to chat and tell them about her pregnancy. I was worried and wanted to go with her, but she shook her head. Aren't you working overtime this weekend? Don't worry. I can handle it by myself. After Candace left, I went to the office to handle some business. I was so busy I lost track of time. And when I finally decided to head home, I realized it was already 10 o'clock at night. As I was packing up, I heard footsteps. At this hour, was someone still here? I looked up and was surprised to see Adrienne. You've been busy until now. Haven't had dinner yet, right? I brought you some fried noodles from that old man's place on the school road. The one you used to love. Adrienne opened the takeout box and placed the noodles in front of me. I don't need it. Candace is waiting for me at home, I said as I put on my suit jacket, preparing to leave. Don't lie to me. I saw Candace leave this afternoon. Were you spying on her? I questioned Adrienne. What if I was? Are you feeling guilty? Adrienne sneered. Do you really like Candace that much? What's she to you? Bainbridge. We had 7 years of feelings. Can you really let that go? If you want Candace to leave, can we be together again? I don't care if you're better off with her. I only care about you. Adrienne was almost losing her mind. I didn't want to engage with her any further. So I advised her. Adrienne, let it go. Focus on living your own life. That's better than anything else. But I can't let go. Bainbridge. I just like you. I can't forget you. When I'm with Carl, I think of you. Even when I sleep with him, I'm thinking of you. Bainbridge. You started this. You can't just pull away from me like this. It's not fair. Adrienne, you're seriously messed up. I sighed. Go back. Let's not see each other again. Then don't bother Candace anymore. If you keep disturbing me and my partner like this, I'll call the police. Adrienne's body trembled. She let go of me, gazing at me with a dazed expression, and said bitterly, Bainbridge, you really are heartless. Compared to you, it's nothing. I replied, fine. Good. Tears glistened in Adrienne's eyes as her lips quivered slightly. I heard that after I flew abroad, I want to go back and see my place. Promise me this. And I won't bother you anymore. To be honest, I wasn't keen on the idea. I put half my heart into Adrienne's company. I had put in a lot of effort when her company went public. I didn't want her to see the company I managed grow and then start to long for again. But after thinking it over, I felt it was better to avoid further trouble. So I agreed. I set a time to meet Adrienne. She said she would come next Friday, and I agreed. A week passed quickly. On the appointed day, I waited for Adrienne at the company entrance. The outfit was neat, but it was clear the fabric was old. After all, it had been 7 years. The style was outdated, and the material was no longer as good as what was used now. Adrienne curved her lips and asked, Do I look good? You picked this out personally. I've kept it all this time. I avoided her question and turned to walk into the lobby. Come inside. I introduced Adrienne to the various departments of the company and talked about some collaborations I had secured since. Adrienne touched the leather chairs in the office and remarked, It really is different from before. Yeah, the company has grown and matured. I said, Bainbridge, thank you for managing UCI. I founded UCI. Then it carries my efforts and our memories. I felt dissatisfied with what Adrienne said. Don't get it twisted. This is my company, not yours. And it's not called UCI anymore. Yeah, you're right. Adrienne smiled and continued along with my words. Feelings don't lie. Bainbridge, since you're acquiring UCI, it means you still have feelings for me. And just a businessman. After touring, I took Adrienne out, and we happened to run into Candace. Adrienne. Candace greeted her and then said, Let's go. Go. Where to? Puzzled. Weren't you the one who said you wanted to treat Adrienne to dinner? You said to bring me along too. Adrienne told me to wait for you at the company entrance. I shot a fierce glare at Adrienne. She was smiling smugly as she walked over and linked terms with Candace. Bainbridge must have been too busy to remember you. Candace, don't be mad at him. The restaurant is already booked. Let's go. At the dining table, Adrienne kept serving dishes to Candace. Adrienne, don't just serve me. You eat too, Candace politely urged. It's fun. Candace, eat more. You're so thin that people might think Bainbridge doesn't treat you well. Adrienne laughed. Serving me more food. Bainbridge, this is your favorite. I'll cover this meal. It's on me and Bainbridge. Candace, if you're still hungry, I won't allow you to go home. Adrienne said with a subtle smile. Candace got the underlying meaning and nodded, falling silent. Adrienne, are you done playing around? I snapped, unable to take it anymore, and put down my chopsticks to question her. Bainbridge, you're scaring Q and Gru. Adrienne scolded and served Lin Q and Gru more food. Candace, don't mind him. Bainbridge has always been like this. Candace pursed her lips and spoke. Adrienne, today's me. Right? Didn't I just say? I'm treating together with Bainbridge. Who the hell is treating together with you? Adrienne, get out. I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't believe someone could be this shameless. I didn't want to stay with her for another second. Candace tugged at my sleeve to calm me down and then turned to Adrienne. Adrienne, did you call us here for a reason? Well, Adrienne pretended to think. I do have something to say. What is it? Candace, do you remember I mentioned my ex-husband before? Yeah. Candace's expression darkened. I want to remarry. What do you think? That depends on both parties' willingness. Candace looked down, feeling dejected. That's good then. Adrienne nodded, a satisfied smile on her face. Candace, I didn't tell you before, but my ex-husband is Bainbridge. Yeah, I know. Adrienne didn't expect that response. Her eyes widened in shock. You know. Yes, I know. After a moment of surprise, Adrienne burst into laughter. Then, taking us by surprise. You slut. Since you know Bainbridge is my ex-husband, why are you still clinging to him? You're just a mistress taking someone else's husband. You've enchanted Bainbridge to the point where he won't even look at me anymore. As long as you're gone, Bainbridge will come back to me. Adrienne, have you lost your mind? I rushed forward, prying her fingers off Candace and shielding her in my arm. Candace touched her neck and coughed a couple of times, her eyes red. Adrienne, I don't know what kind of past you have with Bainbridge, but since you've divorced, and Bainbridge and I have built a new family, there's no possibility left for you two. Bainbridge is mine. We're happy now, and I love him. Please stop entangling with us. It's not me who's entangled with him. Bainbridge loves me. You are the one who intruded and blocked my relationship with Bainbridge. You're ruining other people's feelings and then spouting all this nonsense. Adrienne was completely deranged. She looked at me desperately, pleading. Bainbridge, you love me, right? Leave Candace. Let's be together, okay? Adrienne, can you stop being so delusional? I looked down at her. No, it shouldn't be like this. If you didn't love me, why did you pursue me before? If you didn't love me, why did you marry me? Bainbridge, it was 7 years. How can you say you don't like me anymore? How could you leave me? I clearly needed you. I let out a cold laugh. Why do you think I left? You cheated on me. You changed your heart. Is that so hard to understand? It's not, Bainbridge. Listen to me. It's not like that. I didn't change my heart. I've only ever loved you. Look, I didn't leave Carl to return to you. Do you think I don't know? I heard from Colby that you left Carl to return because he stopped dating someone else abroad. And you two fell apart. Carl kicked you out. So you had no choice but to come back. Right? I did have a fight with Carl, but my feelings for you are real. I don't believe that 7 years of feelings can just disappear. Bainbridge, you still love me, don't you? You still care about me. I'm still in your heart. Adrienne approached, trying to take my hand. I violently shook her off. Get away from me. In my heart. Adrienne died 7 years ago. No, Bainbridge. You can't treat me like this. I'm Adrienne, your beloved Adrienne. Adrienne's eyes were filled with tears. A mix of love and hate, unable to grasp or let go. This farce ultimately ended with the arrival of the police. Fortunately, I reported them after Adrienne grabbed Candace's neck. Otherwise, with her current mental state, I really wouldn't know what she might do. On the way back, I asked Candace, since you knew Adrienne is my ex-wife, you should have known what kind of person she is. Why did you still come to the dinner? Today was lucky. You didn't get hurt too badly. What if it hadn't been lucky? I know this dinner wouldn't be good. But Adrienne said if I didn't come, it would just be you two having dinner alone. Seeing Candace's aggrieved expression, all my resentment faded away. I gently patted her head. How could that be? If you didn't come, I wouldn't have had dinner with her alone. But I was afraid. You know, when Adrienne said she wanted to remarry, I was really scared. I was afraid you still had feelings for her. If that were the case, I couldn't keep you, but I also didn't want to give up. As she spoke, Candace's tears started to fall. I don't know. I still want to be with you. I wiped her tears away. I thought you were so composed and calm at the dinner table. I thought you really had everything under control. So what were you thinking? If I agreed to remarry Adrienne, would you really let go? What about the child? What about you? But I can't be that selfish. Silly girl. I wrapped my arms around Candace. You can discuss anything with me in the future. Don't bear it all alone. Didn't you say before, in a relationship, how can we be honest with each other? Just the mundane daily life. So simple. If we both had our own burdens, it wouldn't work out. Candace choked up, revealing a smile. Okay. When I returned home, the police notified me that Adrienne had been formally detained. during her time in custody, even yelling and cursing at the officers. She was forcibly taken to the hospital for an examination, where the doctor said she suffered from severe depression and anxiety. After this incident, I never saw any trace of Adrienne again. I heard from Colby that she had rushed to reconcile with Carl. Their relationship had always been casual. Now that Carl was thriving abroad, how could he possibly agree to start over with Adrienne? Adrienne ended up without a place to stay and spent some time in Port City. At the next class reunion, she no longer attended. Eventually, everyone lost contact with her, and she became forgotten in our memories.